and welcome. In this episode, I'm going to share another story from Jay, who emailed in an update to his ongoing encounters with what is believed to be a reptilian creature in an area near Joshua Tree National Park. This update is Jay's final entry in his story and takes us back to the cave where it all started. He shares an experience he and his nephew had there before leaving us with some parting words about what he experienced in the cave and the surrounding areas. I'd once again like to thank Jay for sharing his story with me and allowing me to share it with all of you. Jay's story began in part 1 of what has now become a trilogy, with him emailing me some compelling pictures he caught on a trail cam outside of the cave after having some encounters in the area where he likes to camp and hike. If you would like to see those pictures and hear those stories, I will include links to parts 1 and 2 in the description below. Part 3, which is a little shorter than the other entries, is the final update in this series, for reasons I will let Jay tell you about, which are included at the end of his email. Hopefully he has no further incidents, but if he does and emails them to me, I'll be sure to pass them along. With his permission, of course. Alright, let's get into today's story. Jay's email reads as follows. On the second weekend of December, we went camping. A nephew that hadn't been to the cave joined us that weekend. I'll refer to him as K. He was really interested in going to the cave. I told him we would take him the following morning. The next morning, we arrived at the cave and my son went inside with my nephew. I told my son not to venture too far. The others in the group chose to stay outside and wait. I went inside with another nephew to check up on my son and Kay. I could hear them talking and flashing their lights a short ways in. After talking a few minutes, my son and nephew exited the cave. I told everyone to stand quietly for a couple of minutes and listen for any sounds that might emanate from inside the cave. Nothing was heard, so we got ready to leave. Kay went back and stood at the entrance of the cave. As he did this, I seized the opportunity for some, quote, experimentation, if you will. I told Kay to speak into the cave and pretend as though he was in need of help, so he went along and did just that. He spoke 3 times into the cave. Hello, is someone there? I need help, please, I need help. On the 3rd time, Kay and I clearly heard a loud thud inside the cave, as if something jumped down from a higher point inside the cave to the bottom. I was the nearest to Kay and the others didn't hear the sound. He quickly turned to look at me and asked, "Did you hear that?" I acknowledged that I did indeed hear the sound. Kay continued asking for help. He did this another 2 minutes or so. A few times throughout, he would turn and look at me and gesture with his hands that something was walking inside the cave. He told me a couple of times, "Something is getting closer to the entrance, Uncle." Kay then stopped calling for help and turned to tell me, "I can feel it's right around the corner inside the cave." He was pale and looked really frightened. He stated, "I'm done, Uncle." I agreed and told him to stop. At the same time, the rest of the crew couldn't contain their laughs and giggles at hearing him put on such a show. In their defense, he did sound a bit comical. So I'm convinced that the thing inside the cave heard them. This perhaps prevented it from coming out. A few weeks went by and I saw my nephew Kay at a family party. Kay proceeded to explain in detail what he experienced that day at the cave. He stated that he not only heard the footsteps emanating from inside the cave, but also that he felt the footsteps. He said his body would vibrate and then the vibration would move up to his head. He could hear the footsteps inside his head. He stated that he was reminded of the Jurassic Park scene where the boy is inside the car staring at the cup of water. Every time the T-Rex takes a step, the ground rumbled and vibrated. The cup also vibrated. He said he felt like that cup. He continued explaining that's why he got so scared. He literally felt his body panicking. He told me he felt like running away and getting as far away from the cave as possible. After hearing this explanation from Kay, I believe his sympathetic nervous system was on complete flight mode. What I find interesting is that no one else felt this intense fear. It's almost as though Kay was specifically targeted by the unknown creature inside the cave. Now, there is no doubt in my mind, and maybe others will agree that have been following these events, that there is definitely something inside that cave. Something unknown, cryptid in origin. This encounter is really unique in the sense that I have found the abode of a cryptid. Many of the encounters I have heard claim to have seen a fleeing cryptid, hiding cryptid, hunting cryptid, etc. Never have I heard anyone finding the actual dwelling place of such a creature. So now it raises the questions. How bad do we want to know what this cryptid is? Let's say I do get a good video or pictures. Remember, what we see we can't unsee. Are we really prepared to see the unknown that hides in dark places? That uses darkness and shadow as its cover? That makes the pit and desolation its resting place? That finds comfort and solace hiding deep within the unforgiving blackness of the earth? That seeks the warmth of utter darkness as a child seeks the warmth of its mother? Yes, although these things are unknown to us, its name can be no other than abomination. Think about it. What did most encounters have in common? Horrible stench as of rotting meat, death, sulfur, sense of danger, confusion, panic, unexplainable fear and anxiety, demonic, an intense feeling of loathing emanating from the creature, and finally, helplessness. With that being said, I will stay away from this place. It has been a great adventure, but at the end of the day, I'm in harm's way. My loved ones are in harm's way. God knows what this thing is, what these things are. I believe He keeps them at bay, on a leash, for lack of a better expression. I also believe the Book of Enoch clearly explains the origin of these cryptids, aka abominations. That's probably why pictures and videos of these things are blurry. We are being protected from gazing upon their true monstrous forms. The unfortunate people that have had a close-up encounter with these things never seem to be the same. Some of those people refuse to ever go back into the wilderness. Thank you all for joining me on these adventures. Blessings and love to you all. Remember, don't live in fear. Rule over it by educating yourself, being prepared and ready. Never stop enjoying life. Keep enjoying the outdoors. Stay on the marked path. Always listen to your gut feeling. Stay safe, my friends. I will leave you with this quote from J.R.R. Tolkien. It's a dangerous business going out your door. You step out into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. And that's the end of Jay's email. This story is a prime example of just how primal these creatures can be, sensing prey and moving in to act. I believe this is the true nature of many, if not all, cryptids. The fear Jay's nephew experienced is something I see in a lot of stories, and is probably how prey feels when a predator moves in. I agree that it was his flight response kicking in. When people feel this, especially when encountering a cryptid, they should listen to their gut and get out of there. I'm just glad Jay, his nephew, and the rest of his family did that without further incident. If this thing was right inside the cave, which it certainly seemed to be, there's no telling what it was thinking about doing. I told Jay in a recent email to put his and his family's safety above all else because we don't know what these things are capable of. Also, we should not provoke them. I'm not saying that's what Jay and his family were doing here or in any other parts of his story, but we just don't know how the creature interpreted their actions at investigating its presence there. It could have perceived them as threatening and taken actions based on that. We will probably never know the true intentions of beings such as this or any other cryptid, so it's best to not put ourselves in a position that might leave us vulnerable to their whims. I think Jay is making the right choice here by removing himself and his family from that situation. I'd once again like to thank him for sharing his stories and letting me share them with you. And that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you'd like to hear more stories like these and other types of cryptids, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to send me your story, I'd love to read it. My email is wolfwhocriedcryptid@gmail.com. I will also put it in the description below. With your permission, I may want to use it in an episode. Even if you'd prefer that I didn't share your story on my channel and just want someone to listen, email me. We can privately talk about your encounter. And please remember to keep it civil in the comments section. No one deserves to be ridiculed whether they believe or not. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you at the next episode.